Well, joining me now from our nation's capital to talk more about it is Gary Shapiro. He's the CEO and Vice Chair of the Consumer Technology Association. Gary, after a busy few days for you in D.C. and certainly some busy days here at the Exchange, we're happy to have you. What are the takeaways from CTA Tech Week?
Well, CTA Tech Week we do every year to basically make sure that people in industry could mingle and be with and explain issues to policymakers. And it's right, we're in the nation's capital and we're right there and they're going back and forth from all their votes and their committee hearings. And we had some of the leaders of the Congress talk to our group and meet with them. And we also had the CES is our huge big event we have every January in Las Vegas, focused on innovation with over 4,000 companies. Well, we had about 24 of the companies just exhibit in the Innovation House, which is a house we have right next on Capitol Hill next to the House of Representatives. And we had a whole bunch of members of Congress seeing some really, really cool things from big and small companies.
Interesting. Now, how are lawmakers approaching and embracing some of these emerging technologies?
Well, they're very excited and passionate about innovation, and they believe in innovation. They want to do the right thing, both Democrats and Republicans. To be honest, this entire week compared to prior years was overshadowed by one word, tariffs. It was the top of the mind. And of course, while we were there, right after our board met, before CES on the Hill, the big news came out from the White House, which is we've been more outspoken on that issue than any other trade group in Washington by every definition. And there was some appreciation for the fact we'd taken a major step forward after having a hell week for the last 7 days.
Mm-hmm. So what more can you share about that? Certainly we saw it was a historic rally on Wall Street yesterday as President Trump did walk back tariffs on most countries, with the exception, of course, of China, actually ramping up those reciprocal tariffs on the world's second biggest economy. It too responded for our viewers just tuning in here. But how do these impact and this change impact the industry now?
Well, anything that affects our industry affects innovation and affects consumers and what they pay and what's available. It was like the walk away from the precipice because there was so much going on in the world in those 7 days. World stock markets falling for a week and disaster, and we were hearing from our small business and our largest companies in the country about how significant it was that these tariffs were so pervasive and going in such a wrong direction. What it really means is that was a sugar high yesterday. It was significant, but we're also left with a pail half full of garbage and costs that are unnecessary. On the positive side, maybe the president will get tariffs down to zero, which would be great for the world and for consumers and for workers. But right now, the effective rate for China is, by our calculations, 145%. And we import every day billions of dollars worth. So that means that's going to have a negative impact. And still, across the board, there's a 10% tariff for just about everybody, when a lot of those tariffs were 3% or lower, so more than tripling in tariffs. So it's only for 90 days. So we're still faced with a lot of uncertainty. When a company as big as Delta Airlines, can do anything forward-looking and say anything because it's such devastating for a company like Delta. But Delta is just symptomatic of many, many companies that are affected by this, and it gives, so it's serious, I guess is what I'm saying. Still, It's not over. We don't need like 90 days of just up and down and waiting. Hopefully there'll be some major breakthroughs and announcements of great deals with allies and everyone else to follow. But we just can't hope. We need to get to a little bit more business certainty so people investing in the stock market could feel confident, companies could go forward, they can make plans and investments. A lot of companies left China because of Trump, asking them to, and they're in Vietnam and elsewhere, and still, 90 days of 10% is not an answer, and it's still too much uncertainty for any rational economy.
Interesting. Gary, so in terms of how we move forward from here, what were the conversations that you were having with lawmakers? It's my understanding that more than 24 actually were in attendance over the course of this week at your particular event.
Well, actually, if you had all the different events, it's probably even a lot more. Kristen, to be honest with you, the Democrats and Republicans were both pretty strong that these tariffs are not a good thing, that the Republicans were clearly sticking by their president publicly because they felt they had to. I mean, the reality of Congress and Republicans is they're afraid if they disagree with the president, they'll be primaried. And but it was popping over. You could just tell by some of the comments some members were making even publicly, and lawsuits were ready to be brought and things like that. So I think President Trump did the right thing by stepping back, but I think we have to just move forward. He has to give some clarity on where he'd like to see countries go, because he's definitely in the catbird seat to a certain extent now. And we got to get back to working with our allies. And if we want to get away from China long term, we should do it strategically. We should focus on defense and things that are important to our national security first. Basically, chips and ships, things like that. And we should not be going wholesale across the board tariffs, just trying to punish countries. I believe when countries do trade together, they're less likely to fight wars. So we just got to get some stability. This can't be subject to the whims of one person affecting the world economy.
Gary Shapiro, CEO and Vice Chair of the Consumer Technology Association, joining me from our nation's capital. Gary, we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.